Kip, what's up, man? Great to see you today. We didn't get enough of each other over the weekend, so we thought we'd go ahead and record on this fine Monday morning.
Apparently not. Yeah. I was like,
Yeah,
well, maybe he'll cancel because he's too tired to sit down and talk and be in a cush office chair.
yeah. Too tired does not exist in my vocabulary. I've never been too tired to have a conversation with you, Kip. Anytime I can spend time with you, we can converse, we can whatever.
Yeah.
I'm all about it.
I was thinking about the weekend, obviously, good time. And I was driving
Was
home. I
it?
was
Is
like,
that obvious?
well,
I'm
I was
kidding.
just thinking about, what made it a good time though. And
Yeah,
to be frank, like my favorite thing about the weekend is just sitting around camp, having conversations around life with you and Tanner and the other guys, and just like, I don't know, sharing ideas.
yeah.
It's the best part, really.
It
So
really is. Yeah, I mean the running sucks. So you
totally.
got to sprinkle some running in there. For those of you who don't know, Kip and I and Matt Jenkins and Logan and Colby. I'm going to forget somebody. Anthony, Tanner. Who did I forget? Did I forget
That's
anybody?
everybody. That is
Yeah,
everybody.
we went and ran a the Ragnar relay race this past weekend. If you haven't done one of those, I highly recommend it. As you guys know, I'm not a huge fan of running at all. But we got it done. And like you said, the camaraderie, the brotherhood, being able to connect. I did a Friday field notes last week on why men are so lonely, and we are like men are just lonely, and this is part of the way to beat that loneliness. Even if a man has kids and he's married, he's still lonely. Isn't that
Yeah.
wild?
Yeah, it is wild.
What that means to me is that you cannot rest on your wife or your kids to fill that void. It's an
Totally.
important component. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying neglect them at all. It's just it cannot be filled through your wife and your children. And what I've noticed is that when guys get married, and I fell into this trap as well. And even now, as I go through and I'm in the on the backside of my divorce, it's interesting because all of my like I don't have the same friends that I had before because I forsaked them for my marriage, right?
Yeah.
Like they went away. Like I
Yeah.
sacrificed them in order to, and there's some virtue in that. I think, there is some redeeming qualities in that. You're supposed to cling to your wife and no other. You're supposed to serve your family and be the father. But man, it comes at the expense of your own well-being, which is just not sustainable. So you got to find good brothers to do life with.
Totally. Well, and it's like, who are those people for you? When you're down and out, you're in the dumps, who's the person that you're going to go to let it out and talk through struggles, and that you don't have fear of judgment, or that they're going to give you sound advice to. I mean, it's so many people don't have that. And to add to what you're saying, Ryan, I feel also like the quote unquote friends that we do have probably weren't really selected through a good process anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
some of our friends, well, I played high school with that guy. Oh, so he's your person that you can go to. Oh no, man, that guy's screwed up, and you know what I mean? He's in a really bad place, or I don't like his advice at all. Why is he a friend? Well, it just kind of worked out that way. And so there is some intentionality of like, keep those friends alive, but be intentional about who we surround in our lives and who those friends are as well. And I think
Yeah.
men, we do a poor job in that friend selection job at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. We think about vetting women or we think about vetting business partners or new employees, but we don't really think about the vetting process for our band of brothers, and that's crucial. You
Yeah.
said two things that really stood out to me, Kip. You said, uh, "Where do you go when things are bad?" That's part of the problem is that we're only thinking about where do we go when things are bad. And what I
And
would
by
suggest to you,
that,
yeah, by then it's too late,
yeah,
right?
there is nobody. Yeah. Yeah. Good point.
I've got an email from a guy this morning, actually from last night, and he's like, basically what the thing said is he's like, hey, I haven't been the quote. I remember he used quotes. I've not been the quote unquote man that I can be. I'm
Hmm.
about to lose my family. I'm about to lose everything. I'm not gonna lie. I've been suicidal, and I just wrote a message this morning and said, "How you doing this morning?" That like, how you doing? That's it. Because
Yeah.
he sent this message last night. This email. And I couldn't help but think that this is a guy who, in desperation, like we've all been, is now he's reaching out to people And that's good. I commend him for doing that. But man, we got to be vigilant about this stuff. You got to do this when the getting's good, because when the getting's bad, you got to make sure that you have people to turn to. And in the midst of my personal situation, like I've got plenty of guys to turn to. You are one of those people, and we've built up a relationship and a friendship as things are good. And so that when things are bad, man, it's like seamless, and
Totally.
you can do what you need to do. Plus, you know me really well. So you know if you need to put your arm around me and say, hey, bro, it's okay. Or like, come on,
Or
man,
call
get your
you
shit
up.
together. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that leads me to another point that you had said, and you said, we're worried about fear of judgment. I contend with that a little bit. I actually want somebody in my corner who's a little judgmental. And I don't mean like me as a human being. I don't mean unnecessary judgment. I mean that somebody can call out my BS when it needs to be called out. Like, hey, bro, you're not doing what you need to be doing. You're not doing what you're capable of doing. You're so much more than what you are right now. And
Yeah.
I will help you do that. But I actually do want somebody who's going to be a little judgmental. And I think this is a
Totally.
Christian misstep that we're not supposed to judge. And look, I'm not a biblical scholar, so I can't tell you the verses, but this is what Christians will say is like, oh, we shouldn't judge. Like, actually, we should. At
Yeah.
least we should be discerning. We should discern right from wrong. We should discern good behavior versus poor behavior. We should be discerning when it comes to our friends. Like if we see our friends stumbling, and this is something I wish people would have told me a year ago, like, hey man, like you're not you're not the same guy that you used to be. Like you seem angry or bitter, or maybe they smell the alcohol in my breath and they're like, what's going on? Like, I want that discernment. I want that judgment because I want somebody to be like, bro, you're better than this. And I wish I would have had that. And people have done
Yeah.
that over the past 6 months, and some of it publicly, and other guys are like, oh, well, I can't believe, this person did that thing publicly. And it's like, some of it's appropriate, some of it's not, but also like at least somebody's willing to say something. Like how many people knew something was going on and didn't say a dang thing and just let
Yeah.
me like continue my poor behaviors? That's not what I want. I
Yeah.
mean, it might be what I want today, but it's not what I need for the long haul.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I totally agree. And it's like, it's almost like maybe if I said that differently, it's have that person to go to knowing that there's not, that they're going to be there for you, even with judgment, that there's not this exit strategy. If I go to Ryan, I tell him that I'm in need, that you're not going to like, quote unquote, abandon our relationship. Does it make sense? And that
Yeah,
you'll take a stand for me, judgment or not, So I think that's kind of, because I think that's what most people are afraid of. I think when they share struggles is, are they going to lose those people? I think there's
that's
a
a good
sense of,
point.
yeah.
I think the best way to get over that is to serve them in their time of need,
Mm,
right? Because okay, let's just hypothetically play this out. You've been a good friend. You've been a great advocate for the business, but you've been a good friend. And you've stood by me through some very challenging and difficult times in my life. If you go through something challenging in your own life, whether that's loss of a loved one, I know your father passed away fairly recently, or financial struggles, marital struggles, like that stuff's going to happen in life, right?
yep.
Like, am I going to leave? Like, am I going to leave you? Am I going to forsake you? No, of course I'm not, because you've been there for me. So the relationships that we have with other men have to be reciprocal. And the best way to, and I hesitate to say it this way because I don't want it to come across as like gaming the system.
Totally.
But the best way to make sure men are in your corner when you need them, and trust me, you will need them. I don't know what it looks like, but you will need them, is to be in their corner when they need you.
Yep. Yep. I like it, man.
All right, brother. Let's hit
All
some
right.
questions today.
Yeah, we're going to field questions from the Iron Council. To learn more about the IC, go to orderofman.com/Iron Council. Ethan Wright, I'm curious about the idea of hope. It's one thing to have motivation, discipline, but what about having a source of hope? Is it important to understand what hope is and where your hope comes from? What's your source of hope? I actually really like this.
Yeah, I mean, my source of hope is in God in Christ. I mean, that's where it comes from. Is I had a really interesting conversation with Matthew Vincent last week, and he was talking about this higher power. I can't remember the terminology he used. Maybe he used the universe or something like this. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And he said, the universe is neither conspiring for you or against you. And I said, well, you're saying the universe as in it's some sentient human or sentient being. Like, is it sentient? Like, is the universe like all knowing? Is it powerful? And
Yeah.
he kind of agreed with that. And I thought, okay, well,
Okay.
let's
That's God
just,
for me, maybe. Yeah.
yeah. And it could just be semantics. But I don't
Yeah.
think it's semantics. I think we need to use the appropriate terminology in that case. But let's just, for the sake of argument, assume that the universe, or I've heard people say Mother Earth or
Yeah.
karma, or, these things. Let's just assume that it is sentient. How would a sentient being that designed this, that has some sort of hand in what's going on in our day-to-day operations, neither be for us nor against us? It doesn't make sense. If there's some sort of cosmic designer, I don't care what you call it right now, just for the sake of argument, then it has to be for you
Because it designed you.
because it designed you. To what end?
Yeah.
To thrive. Or maybe even from a non-spiritual perspective, to contribute to the ecosystem. Like, you are a contributor, you are a participant in this thing.
Yeah.
So my hope comes in that even in the most dire, tragic, worst, horrible case scenarios, there's some infinite, all-knowing, omnipresent being that is conspiring for my good. Now, I can sabotage it, and I certainly have. And yet he can use that for good. That is the foundation of my hope. Now, there's more temporal components of my hope. That is that I'm still alive and I've been through some crazy stuff. So if I made it through that, I can certainly make it through this. But there's a big component that a lot of men miss, and that's having a vision.
Yeah.
When we were running the Ragnar race this weekend, do you remember on the 8 mile course? Can't
You
remember
mean
the
6?
exact 6 miles for Kip, 8 miles. He only ran six. He stopped at six because he thought it was only 6 miles.
I'm like, according to me, it's 6, so I'm done.
You just stopped at six. He
It's my
called in. He's
truth.
like, Van, come pick me up. This was supposed to be 6 miles. I'm not going to finish this thing.
I'm
Come get
done.
me. Yeah. But when you come around, I think you kind of come around the left side of the mountain or something, and you see the campsite.
Yeah. Yep. You see the parking lot and you see the campsite and the buildings and
What
everything.
happens?
Hope.
Hope. That's hope.
Yeah.
That's hope. That's vision. You see something out in the future and you're like, oh gosh, there it is. Okay. And what do? You pick up the pace. You run a little faster. You run a little harder. You take fewer breaks because you see it. This is vision. And guys don't have vision, or at least the men who don't. Those are the ones who are upset about hope. Those are the ones questioning hope because they don't have a vision for their future. Or if they do, it's so muddied and watered down that they can't really even visualize it or see it. But what if you could see yourself as an incredible husband? What if you could see yourself as an extremely successful business owner? What if you could see yourself in the mirror and not see the 50 pounds around the midsection, but you could see 10% body fat? Like, if you could actually see that, would you be asking about hope? No, you would not be asking about hope. You would be asking more about tactics and strategies and how can I get there? But you wouldn't be asking about hope.
Totally.
So I think that's, again, more on a temporal level. What is your vision? What do you want? What do you see yourself? How much time do you spend? Even if you just sit down this week, we're recording this Monday morning. Have you spent any time thinking about what this week looks like? I've got my notes. I'm ready to go. I did this all last night. Sat down. What am I going to do? When am I going to do it? Who am I going to talk with? What conversations are we going to have? What are my workouts like? Everything is lined out. And that gives me my marching orders, so to speak. And I don't have to question about, oh man, what if I don't? No, that's not even a question. It's all there. Now I just have to manifest it, realize it, put it into practice.
I like that. Yesterday, someone shared a quote from Michael J. Fox. It was an interview. I don't know the details. I haven't watched this, but they asked him, how does he maintain such positive, like a positive mindset? And he says, being optimistic is made possible by being grateful, or is sustainable by being grateful. And I think that's kind of what we're talking about here. Hope becomes more available to us the more grateful we are for what we do have. And I kind of like to inject that thought of hope into it, because the more that we're present to what's available to us, that helps us more gratitude helps us to have better hope for the future. And those things are on our radar a little bit more. I don't know,
Yeah,
just some thought there.
that's really good. I think again, I'm just I hope I don't like beat a dead horse, when I say this, but it's important for me to share because I think it'll serve people. I think about with what's going on in my relationship, my failed marriage. Like it's hard, no doubt, but there's a lot to be hopeful for. I'm
Totally.
42 years old. I'm decent looking. I'm not like, ugly, but I'm not, like the most handsome guy on the planet. I'm fairly successful in my business. I know how to talk with people. I've got a good support system. I've got my health. I've got this home. My kids and I have a great relationship. And even my ex-wife have a good relationship, all things considered. Like, I'm grateful for all of that. It could be way
Yeah.
worse. And I talk with men on a daily basis who it is way worse for.
Yeah.
And, the more that I'm grateful for her, for example, or for my kids or for my financial success, it's like I'm grateful. I can't hold being bitter and contentious and upset and gratitude in the same moment, so I agree with that. What's next?
All right. Charles Kimball, or Chase Kimball, I'm sorry. What would be your steps in entering a stepfather role to an 8-year-old girl? She has lost her own father to an accident a couple years ago, and she has been through a lot with her mother. Losing my own father at a younger age has helped me not be, not has helped me not overstep boundaries with her, but her mother seems impatient and wants more from me, especially when it comes to discipline. I feel this is a very broad question, but without writing a book on specifics, I would like to know your how you would plan to go about this situation. Thank you, men.
That's interesting. I don't know that we hear that question a lot where
Yeah.
the wife is like, I want you to be more disciplined with her. Like we don't hear that a lot. It's usually the other where
Which,
it's
yeah,
awkward, it's uncomfortable, you don't know your role to be a disciplinary figure. So, kudos to your wife for sure, because she recognizes that her daughter, 8-year-old daughter, needs a disciplined, structured man in her life. And that sounds like a keeper to me. I mean, because that doesn't seem like it would be real common in that
yeah.
scenario. So I want to
Well,
throw that out there.
yeah, and it
But
sounds like Chase is a little bit acting, not, and this is not a negative comment, is acting out a little bit based upon his experience as a young individual, losing his father and probably someone else overstepping their bounds. And so he's became overly cautious in
yeah,
regards to how he shows up as a father. Yeah.
and I think I understand that. I'm not in that
Yeah.
situation, but I understand that's a sensitive situation. It's not your biological child. I think it is your daughter now. You signed a package deal, and
Yep.
said, that's my daughter now.
Yep.
I'm just really impressed with your wife, honestly. Like this is what I'm taken back by more. Here's what I would suggest to you is when she says, or at least alludes to you being more disciplined with her daughter, your daughter, I would spend some time really asking her what that looks like.
Totally.
Like, what, hun, look, I love you. I love our daughter. Seems to me, if she's not coming out and telling you, it seems to me like you would like me to be more of that structured disciplinary figure with our daughter. Can you help me understand how you see that in your mind? Like, how do you see that? Like, what specifically does that look like? Or what specific areas do you think I can step in? Man, that's just a really assertive, manly way to approach a situation, is to get more clarification, get it locked in, and she might come out and say, hey, this is what I need. I need you to support me when I discipline her. Or if you see something she's doing out of line, I need you to have a conversation in a loving, caring, but also masculine way. she might give you some really good pointers. And I think that's the first place that you go. The next place that I would go is empathy with your daughter. And so instead of being this disciplinary figure, because I don't know when her father passed away, if she was young, if she ever knew him, she had a good, I don't know that part of the story. But if you
Six,
don't,
couple years.
six, oh, couple, okay,
Yeah.
he said that.
And she's 8 now.
Yeah. So she had a little bit of relationship and she remembers the relationship with her father.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I would approach that with a level of empathy and asking more questions of her. Hey, how do you feeling? Like, how are you and I? How do you feel about the relationship that you and I have? Like, sometimes I get upset when you behave a certain way. How does that make you feel? Like, do you get scared? Is it hard for you? Like, just ask questions and get your daughter to open up. The more that she opens up to you, the more she's going to know how much you love her, how much you care for her. And even when you don't discipline her correctly, and you won't, right? We always drop the ball.
Yeah.
At least hopefully she knows that, oh, he cares about me. He does care. He may have not done that right, but he does care. So I would say talk with your wife, listen to your daughter. That's where I'd go. You
Yeah.
probably have a little bit more experience in this than I do. So I'm sure you have some pointers and tips.
Yeah. I mean, so here's the first thought, and I don't even know how I'm going to articulate this. But I remember I was talking, Asia and I were talking with our marriage counselor, and he asked at one point, he says, Kip, do you want to take on responsibility for Kiave? And it was really interesting because I thought, do I have a choice?
Right. Like I already have, I thought.
Yeah. But it was interesting because I'm like, that's true. Like he actually isn't my responsibility. That's a choice that I've taken on. And that's okay, but it's still a choice. And
I
it's
think it was a
really,
choice beforehand, wasn't it?
it was a choice beforehand for sure.
Right.
But
Yeah.
but I like the idea that that you stay present to the idea that you're choosing to take on something that's not your responsibility. And it's really important. And this is a little bit of a side rail, but it's really important that Chase's wife remembers that this is a choice that he's taking. And there's some empathy and appreciation that kind of comes with that concept. So anyhow, with that said, Chase, I'd recommend the following book, The Anatomy of Peace. It's one of my favorite books of all time around, in my opinion, around parenting. And at 8 years old, she's probably a sweetheart and disciplining is very minimal. When she
You don't know
becomes
my
yeah,
8-year-olds.
yeah, but
You've never had an 8-year-old.
the probability of that 8-year-old stepdaughter being brutally tough to discipline in about 8 more years is going to probably increase, right? And you're going to
Sure.
be like, oh man, I wish she was 8 again. That was a hell of a lot easier. Before that time of difficulty comes, get present that you need a strong relationship with her. You need to put in the time. You need to, because you want to be in a position of influence, and you're not going to be if you are focused on correcting and disciplining. That has to be the last step. All the steps leading up to that is you have to be clear in your mind that you don't see her as an object or a problem, that you see her, I like to say it this way, you see her as God sees her, whole and complete and perfect. And does she make mistakes? I'm not saying they don't make mistakes, but you see her potential. So you see her from a heart at peace. And then you actively put yourself in a position to learn about her, to continually learn new things and how she's evolving. And she knows that you love and you care for her. Then, and only then, are you in a position to really be of influence. Otherwise, all your quote unquote discipline is going to come off as he's just trying to change me.
Right.
And I'm not
Authoritarian.
good. Yeah. And I'm not good enough the way I am. So you double down on that relationship as much as humanly possible.
Yeah. Solid. Solid stuff.
All right. Glenn Venstra, how do you balance being disciplined on your battle plan when you're on a trip for the holidays? For example, if I'm on a backpack hunt that I've been using my battle plan to train for, obviously my condition quadrant is going to get the box checked every day that week. But my contribution tactic just might not be possible in the mountains. Do I worry about it, or do I just let go and enjoy what I've been training to do?
I think the answer is neither. You don't not worry about it, and you don't overly concern yourself with it. We we talked about this in I think it was last week about the hardness of steel and being brittle. If
Yeah.
it's brittle and your plan is brittle, it breaks. If it's too soft, you don't get anything done. So a year ago, I would have said, "You just effing do it." Today, I would say, "You knew the hunt was coming up. This isn't a surprise. It didn't just happen. Like you have a hunt now. So you knew the hunt was coming up. So what buffers did you create in your battle plan to ensure that your contribution tactic can continue, maybe in a different way, but could continue in spite of you being out on your hunt? That's what you need to think about. And that's the where it shouldn't be so brittle. So okay, go do your hunt. You should do your hunt. That's awesome. That's good for you. That's a calibration quadrant issue, by the way, because you're taking care
Yep.
of yourself. It also could be a contribution quadrant issue because you're going to provide for your family. So when you have these things that are coming up, you just plan for them. And yeah, you may not check the box, but what is your secondary tactic? So if your contribution, I'm just throwing stuff out here since he didn't share, if your contribution tactic is to uh, show your wife that you love her in some way every single day, let's say hypothetically,
Yeah.
well, you might get her flowers, you might leave a note, you might make the bed or do the dishes without her hounding you about it. You might give her a massage, which obviously leads to way better things. Like there's all sorts of things that you could do to show her you love her. Well, you can still do that on a hunt. Might not leave her a note, but you might just send her a text midday and say, "Hey, hun, getting limited service. The first chance I got, I saw I had a couple of bars, and you were the person I wanted to send a text to." And that's awesome. So there's still ways that you can do it, but they need to be secondary and tertiary tactics that allow you to continue the momentum, maybe in a
Yeah.
different way, without breaking the streak that you're on.
Yeah. The example I've always used is like, would you be better off if you still did them or not? You know,
What do you
like
mean on a hunt? You're saying?
if we're executing on the tactics within our battle plan, it's like, let's say I have a tactic of running right in the morning, and they're like, well, I'm on holiday. My question would be, if you
And
go running in the morning, is your day better
of
while
course it
on
is.
holiday? And the answer is yes. So then do it. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like far too often,
Right.
just be careful that you're not making an excuse. And that's one way to see if you're making an excuse or not, is like, could I do it? And then second, am I better off if I did? And if the answer is, then be better off.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. The one thing that we hear a lot here's one that we hear a lot is, oh, it's hard. I'm on vacation. It's hard to exercise. No, it isn't. It's
It's
really not. You
easier.
may not go into, yeah, because you have less obligations.
Yeah.
You may not have, go into your same gym and do your same workout, but come on, you can't get a run in or you can't find a gym locally. I'll tell you what, the first time I did that really like dedicated, disciplined was in Costa Rica several months ago. And I went to the gym every single day,
It
every
was
single
great.
day. I loved it. Not
Yeah.
only did I get my exercise and workout in before most of the people we were with got up, but I met cool people. I got to see a different part of the culture that I wouldn't have seen if I didn't do that because I was going to local gyms. The other one that we hear a lot is, oh, it's hard to eat right on when you're either on vacation or traveling. No, it isn't. You could go to McDonald's and you could get a chicken Caesar salad today.
Yeah.
Like the worst place that you could go for your nutrition, you could go get a chicken Caesar salad at McDonald's. Okay,
Totally.
so don't tell me it's hard to do that. Just tell me you don't want to do that because at least then you're telling the truth.
Yeah. It's
At least
true.
tell me that you're not committed enough to your plan. Like that's the truth. And I'm not here to point fingers. I've been there too, where I'm like, oh, it's so hard. I guess I better just go to In and Out. Okay, that's a decision to eat like shit. It's not a decision that you should make if you're wanting to stick to your goals, but it's not harder. might be a little bit more inconvenient, might need a little more planning, but McDonald's has salads. So don't tell me you can't do that when you're on vacation. Just make a decision and do it.
Yeah. Unless, of course, you're me and like the minute there's a associated road trip, I'm like, yeah, we need Twizzlers. I need a big hunk. Yeah.
And those are,
I'm like,
like,
I'm
I'm
like a
with you, but those are
12-year-old when I'm
choices,
driving a
dude.
car.
Those are choices, like I'm with you. I do the same thing. I saw a funny meme the other day and it was like, if you don't go on a road trip and go to the grocery store and spend $110 like you're a seventh grader, who just stumbled and won the lottery, like you're not a human. I'm with you, but let's not pretend it isn't what it is. It is what
Yeah.
it is, and you're making choices to eat like crap. We did
Yeah.
that this weekend. Like
Oh,
Anthony
totally.
chewing on his Twix, but what did we say? Oh, well, we're running 16 miles, so we can eat like this.
Yeah. You can eat
We can
whatever
do
you
whatever
want.
we want. Like, I don't need permission to eat better or eat worse from you or anybody else. That's a choice. And
Yeah.
that was the choice I made. And I loved every minute of it.
Yes.
But at least we're being honest, right? I mean, that's the key.
Yeah.
Just be honest. Like, call it for what it is. Don't BS ourselves. Say, oh, it's hard. There's not a healthy place. There's no gym. Those are lies. Those are
Yeah.
deceptive lies. Speaking of lies, I heard a new term for sugar coated lies. You want to tell me what you had told me?
Power rings.
Power rings, baby. We had a neighbor that she was hilarious, and she said, oh, she called them power rings.
Yeah, I'm like, I just ran and I'm going to eat this donut because I want to. And she goes, that's why we call them power rings. I'm like, I love that. I was like, yes.
Lies, more lies.
More lies, power rings.
Yep.
Oh, man. All right,
All right, what's next?
Rob Andrews. How can one understand the difference between motivation and discipline? So many of us use the words interchangeably, but I've always felt that they've had different meanings. What does that look like for you in your day to day? Motivation versus discipline.
Do people use those interchangeably?
I don't think so, but I don't know. But maybe Rob wants some clarity of your
Yeah.
distinction between the two.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard people use them interchangeably. I think most people have some sort of general, especially the people listening to this podcast, have some sort of general disdain for motivation because
Yeah,
they hear guys like Jock who are like, oh, motivate. No, you got to be
motivation.
disciplined.
Yeah,
I think you need both. I
yeah.
think motivation is more emotional based,
Mm-hmm.
is the distinction I would make, than
Yeah.
discipline. Discipline is more logically based. Like once you make the emotional decision, then you support it with logic. And logic is I'm going to do this thing for this long in
For
this
these
way.
results. Yeah, for these results. Yeah, it's very
And
systematic.
motivation is like, oh man, I went to this seminar this weekend and I heard this guy and he told this crazy story about how he overcame these hardships. And man, I'm so inspired to go start my business now. That's awesome. Like I don't understand the disdain for inspiration or motivation. I don't think it's sustainable because like any emotion, it
It's
comes and
fleeting.
it goes. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, like last night I was having a hard night last night with regards to my relationship. This morning I woke up, I'm like, man, I feel good. I went to the gym, I feel good. That's an emotion. Like an 8 hour difference. So I spent, an hour wallowing in my own self pity, feeling sorry for myself, went to bed, woke up, feel better.
Yeah.
So it's like it's fleeting, but that's not to say we shouldn't use it. We should put ourselves in environments and around people who will motivate and inspire us. And then we have to back it up with discipline. So here's how I look at it. The analogy I would use, I don't know much about fuel propulsion, but if we're looking at motivation, I would say that's fuel that burns really hot and but it burns really quick. So supercharged, burns really hot, hit the gas, but it just burns really quick. Discipline is a slow burning fuel. So you're not going to get all hyped up and hopped up. You're not going to wake up this morning, yeah, I'm so excited to be disciplined. You're going to wake up and you're like, damn it, it's 6 o'clock already. Now I got to go to the gym. I don't want to go. It's warm in bed here. But you know what? I said I would. So fuck it. Here we go. which was my conversation this morning.
Yeah.
So it's not exciting. It's like I made a commitment to do it, so I'm going to do it. So it's not as hot burning, but it's longer burning. And I think we need both.
Yeah. Totally agree. Stepan Sarita, Ryan, I've wasted my 20s. Those were golden years of lost opportunities. Now I'm
False.
trying to now I'm trying to get back on track, but regrets of lost time are kicking me every day. How do I deal with these regrets?
So I'm going to be a little sarcastic here. Here's what I would suggest that you do. Keep doing all the same dumb shit that you did in your 20s and keep wasting your time thinking about what coulda, shoulda been. And then let's talk in 10 years and see how you feel. Like, that's it. Well, come on now. You didn't waste anything. And even if you did, and
Well,
now
it's
what?
not, yeah, it's not wasted if you learn from it.
Right. And also, even if you did, let's say you just did some crazy stuff. Let's say you went to prison for 10 years and you felt like it was a waste and you could have been so much further. So what? Now, what are you going to do today? What happened the last decade is irrelevant to what you're going to do today. So, yeah, I have regrets. I have regrets with my relationship. I have regrets with the way that I did that, with the way that, I've been a father. I have regrets about business situations, all sorts of regrets. How much time do you think I spent dwelling on those things? Like zero, except for last night when I was walling in my own self pity for an hour. And then I got
Yeah.
up and I'm like, hey, I got shit to do today. So get over it. Like, really. And I'm not trying to be flippant about what you're dealing with or dismiss what you're talking about. I get it. I understand what you're saying, but you've got to get over it and say, hey, you know what? I messed up. I screwed that up. I should have done this. I should have done that. Okay. Well, what am I going to do today that's going to be
Yeah.
better than what I did yesterday? And then just focus on that. We talked about hope earlier. You're in despair because you're looking in the rearview mirror. No
Yeah.
vision in that. Oh man, I should have this woman and this business opportunity and this money and this and that. I should have, would have. That's despair. Have some hope. What am I going to do? What's the next 10 years going to look like? Who am I going to connect with? Who am I going to talk with? Who am I going to have conversations with? What businesses am I going to start? What's my relationship going to look like? How am I going to raise my kids? That's hopeful. Move to that, man. Move to that.
Yeah. When we're constantly focused on what should have been, we stop dealing in reality. Because we feel like I shouldn't have to be dealing, I should be somewhere that I'm not today. And so what do? I don't take any action. Oh, I shouldn't have to be doing this today, Ryan. I shouldn't have to be dealing with these things today if I would have, Well, guess what? That's not reality. Reality is this is where I'm at. Now execute. It's really interesting how when we wallow in our past and our judgments of the way it should or should not have been, it almost stops us from taking action. And I don't know why, but it does, because we feel it's unfair that we should be where we are and it shouldn't be this way. And it's almost like if we shouldn't be this way, then it's exterior to us for some odd reason. I have no idea. I don't understand it, but I know that's what's true for me. Whenever I think about it, I stop dealing in reality.
Well, as I think about what you're saying, I think that you actually should be where you are today because you have exactly what you deserve.
Yeah.
There's this thing that human beings think we deserve something. You deserve
Yeah.
nothing, nothing. Like there's nothing I deserve. And some things I can't even earn.
And no one owes you anything too. That's in that
Nothing.
same realm of thinking. Yeah.
Exactly. And so now look, there's micro events that happen that like, for example, if you're in a city and you get carjacked, like you didn't deserve that. Okay. I'm not saying you deserve that. Like
Yeah.
things happen that are beyond your control. And those are micro events and they could be tragic, but they're
Yeah.
micro events. Like a guy who lost his wife to cancer. Like you didn't deserve to lose your wife. Okay. I'm not saying that. That's tragic. It's horrible, but it's an instance. And if you look at the macro, you have what you deserve.
Yeah.
Your financial situation, your relational status or situation, like those, your health, Again, not on the micro, because I might get diagnosed with cancer today. Nothing I could have done about it. That's not what I'm talking about. So I want to make that distinction. But in the macro, like you are where you are today because of the things that you've done.
Yep.
And I'm where I am for better and worse. I am where I am for the things that I've done. People will say, "Oh man, you've recovered so well from this divorce. Like, how did you do that?" It's because for the last 8 years, in spite of the things that broke down within our relationship, I've been doing some other pretty good work for 8 years. And I would not be in this situation if that weren't the case. We're just a result of our choices over the macro.
Yeah. I want to kind of give him a little bit of, maybe just thought and motivation. We have a choice, and we used this term last week, I think, to be called up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Use your past to call yourself up. Like, if you hate the fact that you wasted your 20s, then get behind it. Get behind it in a way that you become a man so powerful that you're like, you can't help but look back at your 20s and go, I'm grateful I wasted my time because it inspired me to change and be the man I am today. That's how you get over regret. You want to get over regret of a divorce or past mistakes, then make those mistakes be a catapult into you forming into the man that you can become. And then you can't help but go, I know it's weird, but I'm grateful for those things. Why? Because who I am today, I am so happy with who I am today because those called me up to become better.
Yep. Well said.
All right. Eric Dudley, self-respect. Do you believe it is internal or a learned trait? Self-respect.
Yeah, it's learned. I mean, are you a man worth respecting? I'm not asking you, Eric, because I know who you are.
Yeah.
I'm just saying generally, broadly, that's a good question. Am I a man worth respecting? A lot of guys will ask this about confidence. Are you a man who has earned confidence? Are you a man who deserves, since we used that word last time,
With yourself, Ryan, is what you're
with
saying. Like,
yourself?
yeah.
And the way that we do that, here's when I feel the best. When what I say, either vocalized or in my head, aligns with the action.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about little stuff, little
Yeah.
things like I'm going to wake up without hitting the snooze.
Yeah.
I'm going
Little
to take the
moments of
trash out
integrity.
today. Little moments. Those are the ones that are most important. The big ones are easy.
Yeah.
If you make a commitment to go pick up your kid from football practice, like there's some pretty big consequences for not showing up. That's easy. That's easy. Okay. But I'm talking little teeny commitments that you make either again vocalized or just internalized. That's when I feel the best. And that's a man who does that is a man who can have some self-respect. But where I've struggled in my life mentally, emotionally, is when there's a chasm between what I say I'm going to do and what I actually do. We call that the integrity gap. And that's not a man worth respecting.
And you know it.
You know it.
We know it. Yeah.
You know it. And that's why you'll see guys hunched over, deflated, down on their luck, beat up driving minivans. Like you just see him. Like you can see a guy who's driving a minivan. You look over and he's like, oh, that guy's deflated. Like he doesn't keep commitments to himself. He's driving a minivan. I don't know why I'm picking on minivans. But that like you can see it in a man's demeanor, a man who has no respect for himself. You can see it internally. There's something there. You can see it physically by the way that he carries himself, by the way that he looks, by the way he presents himself to the world in the circumstance he's in. You can see it. And I try not to be judgmental. I was way more judgmental a year ago than I am. I'm more empathetic than I have been in the past. And so I'm not judging that, but I do recognize that guy right there doesn't keep commitments to himself. That's why he's feeling the way that he's feeling. So self-respect is, I wouldn't say it's a learned trait. I think it's
earned.
the result. Yes, it's earned. It's the result of keeping commitments to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also,
I
I would
can't.
say there's another thing. Sorry, one other thing I want to say on this. There's also an external factor to this, and that is boundaries. Boundaries, really healthy boundaries, and your ability to stick to them. So if I tell you, Kip, hey man, like we're doing this podcast we're going to record at 9, but you consistently show up late, then that's not a boundary I kept. And I'm not a person worthy of respect, self-respect,
Yeah.
or yours, by the way, because you're not
Yep.
respecting me.
Yep.
But if I say, hey, we're going to do this at 9 and you habitually show up at 9:15, 9:20, and I say something to you like, hey man, like I know things come up. If we need to change the time, like if we need to do it 9:30 or 10, I'm good with that. But if you're saying nine's okay, I really need you to be here at 9 so that we can get this done because my time is important too. Guess what happens? Immediate boost of confidence for myself because I respected myself enough to hold that boundary. And guess what happens to your level of respect for me? It also goes up. We
Yep.
think it won't. We're scared to have that conversation. Oh, I don't know. It might feel bad. He might. No, it's not like that, especially among men. Men are like, you know what, Ryan? You're right. I do need to be here at 9. And you look at that person in a way better light than you did before when you
Totally.
communicate and uphold your boundaries.
And what's interesting is in that example, you probably had internal dialogue of, I need to say something to Kip about
Yeah.
being late all the time. And
Right.
and that's what's fascinating is like I was thinking about while you're talking, it's like what are all these little things that we hear throughout the day? That bothered me. I need to say something. I should communicate that my time is important. I need to call that individual that I have a rift with, and I need to get whole and complete in that relationship with them or resolve that issue. Oh, I need to pick up that trash I just walked by. I need to get out of bed and go to the like. There are thousands of opportunities probably throughout our day for us to go, are you going to respect yourself? Or are you going to make excuses and be out of integrity? The opportunities for us, our souls, call it karma if you want, call it the Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it. It's talking to us on a regular basis all day long, waiting to see if we're going to make the right decision or not.
Yeah. The other thing it's not going to do is it's not going to slap you across the face, at least initially.
No, you can
It's
hide.
just it's just
Yeah.
really quiet. It's just like you walk over that piece of trash. You're like, that's not my responsibility. Like, I probably should pick that up. But it's like super quiet.
Yeah.
But the more you do it, the more you listen and apply it, the louder it gets. And you want it to be loud because it's a compass.
Yeah.
It's a compass for the right behavior. So many guys are like, oh, what should I do? Your compass isn't loud enough because you haven't been listening to it.
Yeah.
If you listen to it on the small things, it'll really apply to the big things.
And
There's
would
one
you
other thing
say,
I would go ahead.
let me ask you this question. Would you say that when you don't listen, that gets quieter too?
Yes, of
Yeah.
course. It's like a muscle. It atrophies. If you don't go to the gym for 2 or 3 weeks, you're going to notice, like visibly notice your arms and back and chest and legs are going to be smaller.
Yeah.
You're visibly going to, it's atrophy. You're not using it. So why use it? It's like wasted effort. There was something I was going to say about expectations. One thing that I'm learning, and I've had a hard time with this, admittedly, is I really want to be somebody who has communicated expectations and boundaries, and then be able to verbalize those and uphold those boundaries. And I'm pretty good at that.
Yeah.
What I'm not real good at is honoring and upholding other people's boundaries.
When
And
they communicate them to you.
or if yes, when they communicate them, or maybe they're even loose, and I'm really good at being so selfish that I will railroad through those boundaries because I have things to do or because you're justifying it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've thought a lot recently about that is that if I'm a person who wants to respect my own boundaries and I want people to respect my boundaries, then I've got to be a person who respects other people's boundaries. And
Yeah.
that's a really hard thing for me to do. The hardest thing is letting go and allowing people to have their autonomy and the authority over their own life. Because I'm somebody who wants to help and to serve and to see
And
what's
you,
best for people.
and you know what that looks like. So why not just, get
Exactly.
them there? Yeah.
If I could just force you to do this thing, everything would be fine. And
Yeah.
I'm really trying to let go of that lately. It's hard. It's really hard for me. But that is something I'm working on. And I have noticed that respecting other people's boundaries has helped me to maintain mine.
Yeah. That's interesting. I like that. All right. Brett Huber, he has a question, kind of fun question in regards to our weekend. He said, I had a last minute opportunity to run a certain race last weekend with a bunch of killers from the IC. I had a conflict with sports tournament for my daughter. I considered for a couple of hours and ultimately passed on the opportunity as supporting my daughter was the priority. Of
Good
course, her
man.
team, of course, her team played terribly, and they were out early of the tournament enough that I could have made the race. Even through my decision was intentional and I was aware of the consequences, I still struggled with keeping my thoughts off of what could have been experiencing over the course of the weekend. What is your advice for when we decide between two important good events in life?
First of all, you made the right decision.
Yeah, given.
Second, doesn't matter if she won or lost or went all the way to the tournament or was at the end or the went out in the first game or got injured in the first inning. What kind of game was it?
I don't know, actually.
Oh, okay. Doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. Like we
Outside
have
your
this
realm of control. Yeah.
well, we have this tendency of focusing so heavily on the results. Like, don't worry about the results. Worry about the actions. Worry about the behavior. The results take care of themselves. So here's what I would suggest. You're focused on what you missed out on, fear of missing out, right? Oh
Yeah.
man, I could
Yep.
have, should have, would have.
Yep.
What did you get from that experience? Start thinking about that. What did you get by being there? Even though your daughter went out in the first round, what did you get from that? Well, she knows you love her. She knew you had the race that you could have done and that you chose to go to her thing.
Yep.
Maybe you had a beautiful weekend with your wife. You know, maybe instead of sitting around watching softball or soccer or what basketball, whatever it was, you guys actually went out and explored the town together and you had a wonderful day with the family or a weekend with the family. Like, what did you gain by making that choice? Yeah, you could have spent some time with us. You could have raced. You could, yeah, sure, of course. There's a cost. We have to make those decisions, but you're not thinking about what you traded. You're just thinking about what you lost. You're not thinking about what you got. And it was an exchange. You just got to figure out what it is.
Yeah. Like it. All right. We're going to jump over to Facebook. To join us there, facebook.com/group/order of man. Well, Luna, my wife feels disconnected and has expressed that she doesn't feel like herself lately. I've tried to listen, offer suggestions, and overall be supportive, be a support system. My energy is depleting, and I don't know how else to help. Any suggestions? Disconnected, and it expressed that she doesn't feel like herself lately.
Well, I have to wonder what's changed. Like,
Yeah.
have you guys just had a baby? Has she put on weight maybe? Has there been a traumatic event in her life, you know, like a loss of a loved one, or maybe even just an argument with her parents or something? Like, what is there an event that triggered this? Sometimes it's not an event, sometimes it's just
Yeah.
life. I will say that there's one thing I would tell you to focus on for you. Your energy is waning, you said. You this is part of my I get a lot of problems. This is one of them. This is one of them. I want to be Superman. I want to save everybody. But in wanting to be Superman, sometimes I became the villain because instead of being the hero, I became a dictator. And that's exhausting. It's exhausting to the people around you, it's exhausting to yourself. Like I truly had the motive of wanting to serve people so much so that I thought I knew what was best for them and tried to force that square peg into the round hole, as the saying goes, right?
Yeah.
If I would have just backed up a little bit and really worked on taking care of myself and making sure that I was in the best possible position to do that, I think that would have saved me a lot of time and headache. And I think it would have given people some space to be able to process their own emotions and work through their own things. One thing I would be cautious of is assuming that whatever she's dealing with is her problem and it's just her. This might be a really good moment for some self reflection. How are you showing up as a husband? I've seen that. I saw that in my own relationship where, you know, I would say, I would act as if something was wrong with her without a willingness to examine my own behavior and performance. And I wish I would have done that. So I think generally women are a little bit more indirect in their communication but there's some veins that you can explore there. Maybe she's not satisfied with the relationship for some reason. And maybe it has less to do with what she's dealing with and more to do with how you're showing up.
Yeah.
That's something worth considering. What do you think?
The only thing that comes to mind is what's on her mind a lot. What is she thinking about a lot? Those are kind of cues of what is the current struggle. But most importantly, and you kind of alluded to it, right? Like people need to figure things out, right? We can't control them, make them happy, and she might need some reps. And I think where most of us will fail is we start taking this shit personal. Mm-hmm. Where she's going through a grind and all of a sudden you're pissed off because she's suffering and now you're overreacting and you're not being supportive at all. I mean, let's be frank. The best way that we could be supportive to our spouses is for us to be on the path doing well ourselves and not overreacting based upon how they're showing up, us being taking care of what we need to be taking care of, and to have that strong self-confidence and self-respect for ourselves. So that way we're in a position. But if we're reactionary to them, we're in no position to be helping them. And so be careful not to set some expectation of like, because that's what I kind of hear here is like, oh, I'm getting exhausted. I'm wearing out. Why? Because you're being supportive to your wife, or because you have the expectation that she should get through this and she's not, and now it's starting to bother you. Be careful that you're not being reactionary to what she's going through.
I like that. There's been times in my relationship where I was emotional to whatever she would share with me. It was more of like an emotional response. And guess what that does to women or anybody?
Yeah.
It's so erratic that they no longer want to share with you. Because they don't know what they're going to get. Like, is this guy going to be mad? Is he going to be happy? Is he going to cry? Is he going to be stoic? Is he going to like on any given day, it could be a number of different things. And so they're like, hey, like, I'm not going to share with you because it's unsafe. Exactly.
Yeah.
And instead, the way that we create safe environments for our people is to be consistent in our response to the things they're dealing with. So if your son comes to you and says, hey, dad, I wrecked the car, your response should be very similar to, hey, dad, we just won the championship baseball game. What a weird thing, right? And I'm not saying you need to be happy about him wrecking the car, but you should be curious about it. If he won the baseball game, you would say, oh, what? Tell me about it. Like, what happened? How'd the game go? How did it play out? Like, did you feel good about your performance? If he wrecks the car, it's like, hey, tell me what happened. How'd that play out? What did you do? Like, it's the same curiosity in both scenarios, and they're on completely opposite ends of the spectrum. That creates a safe environment.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to create for our people. I started going to a therapist about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I've done therapy in the past and with mixed reviews, but this guy's really good. And he taught me some things last week, and he taught me this concept of caring versus carrying people. Caring for people comes from a place of empathy and love and compassion and kindness and a desire for them to thrive and win. Carrying is when you pick up things that they could carry themselves, that you are hindering and hamstringing them by doing things that they should be able to figure out on their own. By diminishing their ability and effort. It's almost insulting to carry somebody because you're saying even subconsciously that they're not capable of doing it themselves. This is a really interesting concept.
And you rob them from learning, I assume.
You do. Of course, you rob them of that opportunity. So I know this is more of a 30,000 foot conversation, but if you could care for her without carrying her, that's what you should focus on. What does that look like? What does care? And I don't know because I don't know your wife, but what does a caring husband do? Not a husband that's carrying her.
I like that distinction. Jason Garner, I try to lead up and down the chain of command at my job, but my superior seems clueless as to what is going on in the warehouse and is just worried about his job and not the greater good. How do I lead up the chain of command with this type of scenario?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if he seems clueless. Again, that's results oriented. Focus on the process. You sound like you're doing it right. Now, there might be things that you can help him with. Maybe he's got too much on his plate that he's like, I can't focus on what's going on in the warehouse. There's things that you don't know about.
Yep.
So be really careful of making an assumption like he doesn't care. I bet he cares. I'd be willing to bet that he cares to some degree, but
Of course
maybe
he
it's just
does.
too much. There's just too much
Yeah.
on his plate, or he's got bigger priorities, or maybe his boss is breathing down his neck about something else that has nothing to do with you. So be really, really careful of saying, oh, he doesn't care about it and he's clueless. So are you,
Yeah.
because
Or
there's things that
help.
are going on that you don't know. So if you
Yeah.
can uncover, and I think this is where you were going, if you can begin to uncover and explore what he's dealing with, you might become a really, really valuable resource to him.
Totally. Yeah. Help him not be clueless.
Yeah.
Help him win and understand what's what, not from this a place of superiority or talking down, but like ramp him up, help him win. Let's be frank, right? Like, one, you can't control necessarily, or like, your realm of control is the warehouse, right? But the more that you can communicate effectively, win in regards to your responsibilities of the warehouse, and build reps and confidence in what you're doing and establish stronger trust with your superior, the better. It's going to help him. It's going to help you, help him win, and ultimately help him not be clueless about it. Not from the place of like trying to look good, but so he's aware of those things.
Yeah. And in that, I would say be cautious of, again, being the hero, the brown noser, if you will,
Yeah.
because I have situations where people, want to help and they'll just like unload everything on me. And I'm like, that's not helpful for
Yeah.
me, for what I'm dealing with, or even my personality. Like if you come to me, Kip, with 10,000 things, with all the data and I'm like, like you can see my brain frying.
Yeah.
But if you come to me, and you know this about me, we've been working together long enough. If you come to me and you're like, hey, Ryan, here's 1, 2, and 3. Boom. Thank you. Let's do this. That's the way I process. That helps me better. So you're actually being helpful when you do that. And when you don't do that, not only are you not being helpful,
You're creating more work.
you're creating more work. And that you're not just helpful, you're hindering.
Yeah.
So try to understand his personality. And maybe the best thing to do is, hey, boss, like I give you these reports each week, and like I don't even know if they're helpful to you or if they're just a headache. I really don't know. Like, are there certain metrics that you want to know of? Maybe there's 3 to 5, or maybe you want 200. I don't know, but what do you need from me to make sure that you feel good about what's happening down here in the warehouse?
Dude, love that. Yeah. Love that.
Assertiveness, right? Assertive. Let's take one more, Kip.
All right. Dustin Michael. Uh, I am suffering in total silence. I have a great job that I love and make an attractive income. I serve my customers well, and I'm well liked in my company. I work out every day. I prioritize my health and fitness. It's a huge passion for me. I read scriptures daily and journal every evening. I have close friends. However, I feel really cold and alone. I'm unable to talk to anyone because my people say things like, it could be worse, or everything happens for a reason. My feelings are always invalidated. I cannot connect with professionals that I've tried to talk to. I feel stuck. I feel like I'm doing all of the right things, but my heart is broken. I am really good about concealing my feelings because I believe that deep down, nobody really cares. How do I begin to change?
Oof. You and me are cut from the same cloth, man. Like all the things that you said are the things that you're supposed to be doing. I read
Yeah.
scriptures, I exercise, I go to work, I make a good income. That's what you're quote unquote supposed to do, which is what I do. I get up, I exercise, I read, I drink my water, I do my
I'm
morning
doing the things
routine,
I'm
I
supposed to do.
journal. I
Yeah.
got a good job. Like, so people look at it and they're like, oh, yeah, see? And then inside, you're just like a basket case, but you hide it because you put on this persona. This is something I'm learning. So I'm not an expert on this, but I think based on my own personality and what I hear in your question is you really need to try to find some joy in your life. And sometimes that means doing something that's fun, that has no productive value whatsoever. It does, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like you're not doing it to do it. You're not doing it to check it off a list. You're not doing it because it's part of 75 hard. You're not doing it because it's part of your battle plan. You're like, I'm just going to go out and do this thing because it sounds awesome. I'm not saying be reckless, of course. You have
Yeah.
responsibilities. But you and me, guys like you and me, we need to find more joy and happiness in our lives. You really do. I don't want to be a robot. I don't want to be David Goggins. I admire him in so many ways. And in so many ways, I don't want to live my life like that. I really don't. And that's not an indictment on him. He can choose his life however he wants. Again, that goes back to letting people live their lives and not having a vested interest in it. I just don't want to live like that. And I have lived like that for 42 years of my life. You know, when I was little, my mom told me this. She's like, when I was like 2 or 3, she said, you started dressing yourself. And I'm like, really? Like when I was 2 or 3? She's like, yeah. She's like, I came in to get you dressed. And you say, I don't want to wear that. I'm wearing this instead. And I remember one time she came into me and she's like, hey, you're a curfew. It was past my bedtime, you know? And she says, you need to go to bed. And I said, you know what, mom? I get good grades. I do my work. I'm a good kid. I've got a job. I'm going to go to bed when I want to go to bed. And if that
Little
starts to
shit.
change,
Little
like if that's
shit.
no, I know, but not really.
I'm joking. I'm
Not
joking.
really. I mean, and if those and I told her, I said, if those things start to slip, then I'll go to bed at whatever time you dictate. But for now, I'm not going to bed. And
Yeah.
she's like, okay. Like this is my MO. Get work done. Figure out a way to do it. Follow the system. Follow the rules. Do what you're supposed to do. And I'm miserable at times.
Yeah.
So I think that's what you should look for. Look for a little joy, man. Go to the beach and hang out.
Yeah.
Think about that. I've talked about the beach. Bring a shovel so you can dig a hole so you're productive. Right? You've heard me talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just go to the beach and lay there.
And do nothing.
Get a book. Go to Barnes and Noble today or get on Amazon and don't buy Sovereignty or Masculinity Manifesto. Like, don't buy that shit. Go buy the latest thriller from Jack Carr and read that. Like, dude, just like, brother, you and me need some fun in our life. Like, enough with the product. You're productive, okay? Like, you can get back to being productive anytime. Joy,
Yeah.
fulfillment, happiness. And then the other that again my therapist used is the word buoyancy, light, floating, enjoying, being present, letting the environment have its way with you in a way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. A couple of things come to mind, Dustin. I would actually, I mean, there's probably a number of books that we could recommend. I mean, we were talking about this over the weekend. The Four Agreements is such a great book. It might be something for you to consider reading. But this might be deeper work, to be
Yeah,
frank. And I'm
true.
projecting on you, Dustin. Like, how's this? I'll just share a quick example. By default, I have abandonment issues. One of the most profound things that Asia has ever said to me once, and she didn't say this for like a long time, and as she's still learning me and understanding me, it was probably about a year ago, and she says, you know what, Kip, as doesn't matter how difficult this marriage gets, I'm not going to leave you. And that was like profound, because that's what I always assume is going to happen. Because that's my MO based upon how I was raised. Now, where did I get that? That feeling of abandonment? It's stupid. And it's actually a lie, but it was something that I made true when I was 5 years old. My mom dropped me off at kindergarten, didn't walk me into the room, didn't show me what was doing. She like literally pulled up to the school and goes, okay, have a good time. And I remember wandering around scared shitless, like, where do I go? Who are these people? I didn't want to talk to adults. All these kids I didn't know. Like, I felt abandoned as a child. And that was a defining moment for me. And I know it was a defining moment because I saw the world one way. And after that event, I saw it differently. And I made a promise to myself that I was not going to feel this way again. So I'd clam up and I'd show up differently in the world based upon that experience. And the funny thing, the reason why it's a lie is, did my mom abandon me? No. The truth was, she dropped me off at the school. I didn't even know why or what else was going on. Hell, she could have probably even walked into the school with me and I just don't remember it. And I just emotionally felt that way. But that is what I held on to. And here I am, 43 years old, and I still feel the same way I did when I was 5, when there's opportunities of abandonment. And so I'm looking for evidence of that truth in my life. I don't know if that's true for you, Dustin, or not, but the probability is this is not a new feeling that you have. You felt this way before. You felt this way probably throughout your entire life. And you've never addressed it and realized that, hey, when I'm feeling like this, I'm digging in to those patterns of synapses that I had when I was 5 and looking for evidence of it being true. And there's power in it, not to be a victim, not to look back and go, oh, see, I was abandoned when I was a kid and this is just who I am. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is there's power in me going, geez, when Asia acts this way, I feel abandoned. Is that true? No, that's not true. This is me projecting my past into the current situation. And I'm now showing up in our relationship like a damaged little 5-year-old kid. She doesn't deserve that. That's where that feeling's coming from. That's not what we're experiencing right now. And now I can take appropriate action because I know where it's coming from. And it's not this elusive, I'm stuck and suffering in silence, but I have no context of where it's coming from.
Well said, man. I mean, that's awesome. So my question to you on that is, what thoughts do you have for getting to that point of doing that kind of work? Because I think most of us have those things, whether it's abandonment's one for me. You know, I've thought in my mind, like, oh yeah, people are always, they always leave. Like everybody, and I know where that comes from. Dad, 2 stepfathers leaving. And I do a lot of journaling to like reflect on these things in the moment. Like, why am I feeling this way? And I dive deep, you know, like, hey, you're feeling abandoned or you're feeling hurt or betrayed is one that I get a lot. Like I feel betrayed. Okay, I write, like, why do I feel that way? What's going on? Is this true? And that's helpful for me. But do you have any tips on that?
Yeah, I do. I wish I could give credit. I read something at some point and it rang true to me. All of those moments, we remember them like they're yesterday. So you could look through your past and the moments that you feel them, you taste them, like you remember them vividly. The probability is those are those defining moments in your life. They roughly estimate that there's probably up to 5 defining moments between the ages of 5 all the way up to 15. And the key things about them is you saw the world one way and then you saw it differently and it changed, like you made a decision, like something is wrong. And thus it caused change in who you were as a person. And they're often tied also to our stories, the stories we tell ourselves, not the stories that we tell other people. Yeah. Right. That we justify the way we are, like, oh, you know, poor me. I've had this upbringing and you know what I mean? Like the things that we used to justify and feel good about ourselves, they're kind of hidden into those stories. So I'll look through your past of like, what are these moments that I just remember like it was yesterday? And I remember something wrong and then do what you're doing, start journaling, going deep of like, what did I make that mean? What was that scenario? And then most importantly, and this is a part I think is the part we miss, figure out why it was a lie. So much is a lie. It really is. Like I would even challenge people that had been abused by your parents. You might go, well, my parents abused me because they didn't love me. That's even a lie. Really separate your interpretation from what actually occurred. I wasn't abandoned. I got dropped off. That's it. Oh, my mom didn't care. No, she just dropped me off. I interpreted that she didn't care. Right? That's my creation. And so get really clear on that because some of those things, it's going to feel like truth. And it's really important that you realize it's not truth. It's just your interpretation of it.
Well, and that's why I hate the my truth thing, because you're deceiving yourself.
Totally.
My
you're
truth
accepting
is
something.
Yeah, you're alluding to like, this is just me. This is my truth. So this is the way I am. No, this is who you made yourself into, even subconsciously. You made yourself into this person. I think about it. You know, I think about what my deficiencies are, and I also think about what I'm good at. And one thing that I am really good at, a trait that I have, is I'm very loyal. I'm very loyal, and I'm very committed, to a detriment at times. Yeah. And I asked myself, well, okay, well, why is that? Well, it's because of the abandonment. It's because of the betrayal. or my interpretation of it. Because I didn't like that experience and it was so life changing for me, I started to behave differently. And now I'm like a loyal, again, to a detriment. When you're on Team Mickler, you're on team, like you, I'm always on your team regardless. That's
Yeah.
where that came from. So you could even begin to explore what are your traits and characteristics and what are they attempting to mask and hide?
Yeah.
Why did you adapt the way that you did? What scars have built up? What patterns and behaviors have you incorporated that I would say are healthy? A lot, like being
Yeah.
loyal is a healthy characteristic,
Some of them serve us very well.
right? All of
Yeah.
them serve us. Otherwise,
Yeah.
we wouldn't have adapted to be that
Yeah.
way. But what underneath the scar tissue? If you're loyal, why? What's underneath it? I'm not saying don't be loyal, continue to be loyal, but figure out where it comes from. If
Yeah.
you feel like, if you're just like the hard charging, got to get it done, just your value and your worth is determined by your results, why? Why? Why do you feel, who are you trying to prove that to? I'm not saying don't be hardworking, and I'm saying figure out who you're trying to impress or get you to love or get to them to love you. Get to those root things. I think one resource on this is Connor Beaton with Man Talks. His new book, Men's Work, is really phenomenal for this. A lot of shadow work introduced by young Carl Jung. But yeah, he's got some really insightful stuff. So you should check that out as well.
Yeah, for sure.
All
Cool.
right, brother. Let's wrap it up.
Yeah. So as always, connect with us on the socials at Ryan Mickler for Twitter and Instagram. We mentioned that we're fielding questions, obviously, from our Facebook group. Join us there, facebook.com/group/order of man. And we roughly got another month or so before we open up the membership for the Iron Council. If you want to stay notified in regards to what's going on there, go to orderofman.com/irons council, sign up, get part of that newsletter so you can get proper communication of when we open up our membership.
That's right. All right, guys. Cool. Great questions today. Appreciate the questions. Hopefully, we gave you some good answers. And we'll be back on Friday. Until then, go out there. Let's take action and become the men we are meant to be.